Ah, Pixar sequels. They range from the apex of the Academy Award-winning Toy Story 3 to the Golden Globe-nominated Cars 2. But hey, this movie has had 14 years to bake, and clearly sequels that come at least a decade after the original have to be good, right? Right?
From the old movies of 30 years ago and beyond,
to the world of the new films of the last 30 years.
To the movies that are now playing, this is Old, New, and Now Playing. And now, here's your host, Will Robinson Smith.
Hello and welcome to Old, New, and Now Playing, your time machine through the world of movies. I'm your host, Will Robinson Smith. Thank you so much for joining me. And really, all jokes aside, with Cars 2 notwithstanding, Pixar's actually had a really good track record for their sequels, so I went into this movie with pretty high hopes and a lot of expectations, so grab your super suit, it's time to go. This is your feature presentation. While Incredibles 2 didn't make its debut until 14 years after the original, the events of the film pick up immediately where the first film left off. One of the big hangovers from that movie was the fact that supers are still illegal. This film takes that baton and tries to answer the question of what would it take to reverse that decision? The task is taken on by billionaire Winston Dever and his sister and business partner Evelyn Dever, voiced by Bob Odenkirk and Catherine Keener respectively. Their plan is to launch a marketing campaign to reframe the supers in the minds of the world's regular folks using Elastigirl as their prime figure. In order to do that though, Mr. Incredible, voiced once again by Craig T. Nelson, has to be the stay-at-home father who's holding it down at home. Complicating matters for Elastigirl is a supervillain named Screenslaver, and Mr. Incredible has the unforeseen challenge of grappling with baby Jack Jack's new powers. So I decided to watch this movie as the tail end of a double feature, and I have to say, it was really interesting watching just the animation style and where we started back in 2004 and where we are now 14 years later. There certainly was nothing unsophisticated about the animation of The Incredibles, especially for the time, but that said, the motion in The Incredibles 2 is far more fluid and crisp, and you can really see that in Winston Dever's face and in the mouths of all the characters. Plus there was just so much more detail in the world itself, like the way that hair moves and crinkles in a shirt, for example. Another interesting distinction between the two films is the voice work of the characters. On the whole, everyone who was in the first film does reprise their roles here, with a few key exceptions. In the first movie, Spencer Fox voices Dash, but he was replaced in Incredibles 2 by Huck Milner, reportedly because Fox's voice just got a little too deep to create the right tone. The other notable changeover for voices was for the character of Rick Dicker, the government agent who helps reassign the Pars to a new location and typically cleans up the messes that Mr. Incredible makes. He was originally voiced by Bud Luckey, a storied man in the animation world. He was just the 5th animator to join Pixar and is credited for designing Woody for the Toy Story films, among many other achievements that include Academy Award nomination for his short film, Boundin'. However, Luckey died earlier this year before he could voice Rick Dicker and was replaced by actor Jonathan Banks. Fun fact though, Rick Dicker is actually the second Pixar character to be voiced both by an actor and a member of the Pixar studio. The other was Chick Hicks from the Cars movies. He was first voiced by Michael Keaton in Cars back in 2006, and then Bob Peterson in last year's Cars 3. The one holdover actor that I did notice there was kind of a distinction between the two films was Holly Hunter as Elastigirl / Helen Parr, and not in a bad way, but just you could hear in her voice that she'd gotten a little bit older, so considering that the films in the movie timeline continue seamlessly from one to the other, it was kind of interesting to hear that distinction, but again, it wasn't terribly distracting, just something I noticed off the top. That said, I really enjoyed what they did with her storyline of having to reshape the narrative on the supers. I thought her interactions with the Dever siblings created a cool dynamic that we really haven't seen in other Pixar films before. Also, I believe this is the first adult sibling pair that Pixar has given us. Let me know in the comments if you can think of another one. And while there certainly are a lot of different fun elements here, I think Jack Jack may have actually been my favorite part of what was already an incredible movie. In talking about what he wanted from this film, director Brad Bird said of Bob and Helen Parr that he was going for the humor of putting them in unfamiliar and uncomfortable situations and seeing how they deal with that. For Bob, that Sisyphean boulder was Jack Jack. Now, we only got a hint of his powers in the last film, and as the trailers show, they go full tilt into that this time around. And because you have a baby character who doesn't really talk, there is some danger in overplaying him and making him just really annoying. But every time he's brought in or brought up, it's woven so well into the story because it's usually through the prism of how the other characters are having to grapple with him. Now, if you've taken the time to look at any of the posters for The Incredibles, you may have noticed the little raccoon just chilling here among the rest of the characters, and honestly, I was a little bit worried about that because anytime, or not anytime, but a lot of times when you take an animal character, put them into a story that's mostly human-centric, it can kind of go a little sideways and really distract from all the goodness over here with the nonsense over here. That said, no spoilers, it works. Trust me. And as for the overall story itself, the notes that they hit are totally in line with the first movie, and I thought add a nice dimension not only to this world, but also to the growth of the characters. Everyone has a nice arc that doesn't feel like they're growing too much considering the lack of time between the films. Nitpick time though, I think it's still a little weird that you have this 60s era film that has so much future tech. I don't know, it's a weird melding of two worlds. It looks cool, but it's a little confusing. It's like a strange alternate Pixar version of the 60s where there's no signs of racial inequality and no one bats an eye at, say, modern computer graphics or a giant drill that plows its way through downtown, cause, it's Thursday. Overall, this movie goes into the upper tier of Pixar sequels for sure, and probably with repeat viewings, has to at least come in the conversation of the top 10 Pixar movies. You know there's 20 of them now, right? So for The Incredibles 2, I would certainly say there are good times ahead. And you may want to go ahead and pre-order it on 4K. So those are my thoughts on Incredibles 2, but I want to know what you thought about the movie, and what's your favorite either Pixar sequel or prequel? Sound off in the comments section below. Of course, over here you have more videos, trailer reactions, movie reviews, and the like. Click down here, ring the bell to subscribe to this channel and keep up with all the videos coming out in the near future. Thank you so much as always for watching, and I will see you next time.